methods and random function with time buffers. Random function I've already introduced, but we'll see if we can cover a few more examples. Just a minute. So hope my voice is audible, right? Voice audible? Okay, so we have some disturbance because of election. Just a minute. I think you are able to hear some noted noise, These are the youths of our country. They have not achieved anything, but they just take that bikes and they think they have won some big election in their career, right? So so all they do is just give some some amount and they keep roaming around the areas, disturbing the people. Okay, so let's come back to our topic. Fine. So hope now my voice is clear. We had some disturbance. Fine. So Python functions we will explore first. How to create Python functions, right? So generally in C, what you do, you write hash include stdio.h, correct? So like things are required, right, in C language. So you have to mention the function declaration, correct? So this is called as function declaration, right? So what is a function and what does it return and how many parameters it is accepting. Then you will write the main function and inside the function, that the function you will read the values, right? Suppose I'm just taking two values, int equal to 10, b equal to 20, then result equal to, I'll call this some function with a and b, correct? Or I'll just call them. Then outside the main function, we have to define the function, right? So int into y. Here, suppose we are going to do the sum of two. So here you might print directly, print percentage d, just for understanding it. So x plus y. So this is how generally write function in C language. So three things are required in function, right? So function declaration, function call, and function definition. So this is called as function definition, correct? Function definition. And this is function call, function declaration. Correct. So this is mandatory in C language. Okay. So how to do this in Python is the next question. So in Python, is it exactly similar or is it different? We need to explore. Okay. So in Python, to create a function, we have a def keyword. So for example, let's create a function called as Python. And every function should end with the colon in Python language, right? Suppose you take sum only, def sum one I will do because sum is an inbuilt function. So df function name in the bracket. If you have any parameters, you can pass. So just let's take some simple function. So I'll take the function name as grid. So grid is a function name. So inside the function, suppose I want to write something. Welcome to grid. Okay. So this is a function definition. How to do the function call? You can directly call the function with the name of the function. You'll get the output. So it's a simple example, right? So there is no restriction in Python that you have to declare the function. Okay. So in Python, declaration of the function is not required. Okay. Declaration of the function is not required. You can directly define them and you can call them. So let's first call the function, then define. So still you will get the same output. So this thing only let's explore further. Okay. So now let us create some functions. I'll create two functions now in someone. So here let's what we want to do is int. Say this is accepting two parameters int x comma into y print x plus y. So let's again. So in Python you don't need to write the return type of the function. So it will be automatically taken care. So let's take one more function called as subtraction. This also takes two parameters int x comma int y. Then this will do subtraction. Okay. So function definition, you can directly write like this without return type, but you can mention the variables. Again, the variables need not to have data type in Python. So directly you can write x comma y. Then let's read two values, a equal to int of input, a equal to int of input. So let's call these functions. So what is our first function? Sum1. And to this function, I can directly pass the values a comma b. Similarly, subtraction function, I'll pass the values a comma b. So now error. With the syntax error. What is missing here? df keyword, right? So we have to use df keyword to define the function. Okay. So now you can see I've added two values 5 and 4. So this is printing 9 and the second one is printing 1. 5 minus 4 is 1. So this is working. Correct. So in Python, how tricky it is to understand the language you should know. So now let's try to define them later. First, I will read the values, then call the functions. This is the function call. Then after function call, I'll define them. So I just change the order in which we are defining it. Okay. So you understood? So there is no problem in Python how you are declaring the function, right? So there is no need of function declaration, and you can call the functions in whatever the order you want. Okay. So now let us do one more thing actually. So directly I will call the function now. So still it is going to work. So the order in which you are writing doesn't matter. You can call the functions however you want to, right? Depending upon your requirement. Either you can define it before the function call or after the function call. So this is the how we need to create the function in Python. Okay. Right. So let's see some other examples based on the function. So for example, I want to just create one list. Okay. Then call some function change of A. So here what I'm doing, I'm directly calling this function change and I'm passing the entire list to it, right? So after this, I'll define the function, define change of. Here you can write the formal parameter. So here A is the actual parameter and X is a formal parameter. Similarly, here A and B, what we used previously, they were formal actual parameters and X and Y are formal parameters. So I'm passing the entire list to the function here, correct? So you need not to mention whether X is integer or list. So you need not worry about those things in Python. So internally it will be taken care. So I'm passing that entire A to this X, right? Then we'll do some modification to the list. So A equal to, so A of 1 equal to 100. Okay, so then after this, I'll come out of the function and print that A. So name change is not defined. Okay. So just understand where is the error. Name change is not defined. What is missing here? What is the problem with this? Yes, very good. So X of 1 we have to use. Still it is the same error. Name change is not defined. So sometimes you will be getting these kind of errors. So just understand where is the error. Okay, let's do one thing. So I'll just put this print here. Okay, so still not working. So let's change the order. How it is working. So you need to know why we are getting this kind of errors. So anyone can tell me what is the reason I was not getting the output when I was defining it after the function call, right? So or like here, correct? So then I was writing print table. So what was the problem? Now it is coming because I just changed the order. If you a function should be defined before the call. Function must be defined first and then should be called. Okay. So on function you can explore in detail. So in most of the functions, you have the function call before the, function definition before the function call. So to avoid this kind of errors, always you can go to any website also. Most of the websites, they will see first they will define the function, then they will call. So that is a standard format for function call in Python. So this sometimes will not work. So you should be very careful. So here when I defined it first, it is working. So okay, now it is not working. So hope you are understanding. In Python, what is the best way to not get this kind of errors? So make sure your function is defined before the function call. Okay, so I'll write the point here. Define the function before the function call. Okay. Python and the declaration of function is not required, but you have to define the function before the function call. So that is the error that you are getting here. Now, most importantly, there are so many types of arguments in Python function, which we'll explore one by one. So types of arguments in Python functions. This is very confusing and very like tricky to understand. So concentrate and wherever you get out, please ask. Right. So there are so many types of arguments. So one is called as required arguments. Arguments nothing but the parameters. Then default arguments. Then keyword arguments. Variable length arguments. Okay. So these are the type of function arguments in Python. So let's explore these things one by one. So let's see how to use this required arguments parameter in our function call. Okay. So as I told you, always define the function before calling it, so it will be easy for you. So let's create a function. Here I'm trying to create a function called a section, to which I'll just pass the variable as SAC. That is called a section name. Okay. So here I'm just trying to print that value. Just concatenate it with the print for your understanding. So now we'll call this function with some character. Okay, so what is happening here? We are calling the function with some character, and we are printing along with that character and attach concatenated with grid, right? So here, what happens? Suppose if I call this function without parameter, what happens? Can anyone tell me? So I'm not calling the function without any value. What happens? Yeah, no one. So will it give me output or will it give me error? Error. Okay. So let's try this. So what is the error I'm getting? Section missing one required positional argument. Okay, so this is called as required argument. So when you write a parameter here for any function, and if you don't pass any value to it, by default you will get the missing parameter error, right? So what we are understanding, function requires one argument, and you're not passing any argument to it. So let's try to remove this now, and I'll comment like this. Let's just print this. So this will work because I'm not passing anything and it's not receiving anything. So this is fine. Okay. So similarly, if it is having another variable called as roll number, so you have to pass both values, right? I have to pass section, for example, A, then I have to pass the roll number. Then here I'll print section rate and followed by roll. Okay. So here again, when I say two parameters here, you have to pass two parameters. Let's try to pass only one parameter. Again, you will get a argument missing error because it is expecting two parameters and you're only sending one parameter. So this is called as required parameter, required arguments. That means whatever you mention, that many minimum you have to pass, otherwise you get syntax error. Okay. This is called as required arguments in Python. Hope you understood. Anyone have any doubt? You can ask me. What is required arguments? Did you understand? Okay, so let's go to the next one. So before going to the next one, let's just try to modify the same code. Now I don't want to pass all the section values one by one, right? So I want to just let's define it. There is one more thing called as pass in Python. I'll tell you what is this. Just one equal to you can directly pass the entire list. So am I getting any output? All right. So whenever we use pass keyword with the function, it means that the function is not going to do anything, right? So function is not going to print anything. So it is just like a function without any body, right? So when you don't know what to write inside the function and want to check certain parameters, you can just use pass keyword inside the function definition. Okay, so now let's remove this. Now what I want to do, I want to print all the section details one by one. So for I in SEC. Now this SEC is not a single value, it is a list, right? So I can iterate them one by one. So for I in SEC, print I. Okay. So we are going to print all the section values at a time. So here also this comes under required arguments because one argument is expected and one argument is passed here. Now you know the concept of return type, right? Return type. So in C, we used to return value to the main function. Suppose I want to return the value to the main function and print all the values inside the main function. So how to do that? So def, let's take some operation as the function name and pass some variable to it. Okay. So let's do some mathematical operation. So var into 5. So here I can use the return keyword. Suppose if you want this function to return some value to the function call, we can use return keyword. So whatever the variable I'm receiving, just multiplying by 5 and returning that. So inside print, I can directly call this function. So print operations. What is the function name? Operations. So I'll pass the values 4. So output I'm getting as 20. So here we are returning this value from this function to this particular line. Okay. So return type is also possible in Python functions. Okay. Now there is also required argument you understood. So what is the next one? Default argument. So what do you mean by default argument? So let's take this code. So roll number. Okay. So now I'm not passing anything, but here I'll write section equal to F. Okay. So what you are getting the output? C grid, A grid, D grid, and F grid. So can anyone tell me what is the operation that is happening here? So this is called as default argument. So what is default argument? You need to understand. So in this case, I wrote just parameter name here. Along with the parameter, I have given some default value. Correct. So here I can call the function without any parameter. So compiler will understand, okay, if there is no value, I have to put this default value. Yes. So if no value is given, yeah, correct answer. So it takes default value. So this is the default argument in the Python. So it's very easy in Python how to do function call because you don't have any worrying about what is the return type, how many parameters, what is the data type of their parameters. Correct. So you need not worry about those things. So creating function in Python is much easier than in any other language. Okay, so only thing that you should be careful about is these type of arguments. What arguments you used and what kind of syntax error you are getting and how to overcome that. Okay, this is the default argument. So similarly, we have a something called as keyword argument. Okay, so let's explore that also. So I will create the same function with two parameters, a comma b. Then I'll print those values. Let's call this function sections. What is our first parameter name here? A. So I will pass some value to that. Then what is our second parameter name? B. So B equal to 1, 2, right? Something like this. So this is an example for Keyword arguments. Keyword argument. So what is happening, we need to understand. So just compare here, we used to directly pass the values to the function call, but here we are writing what is the parameter I'm using. So one important difference here is in keyword arguments, actual and formal parameters should be same. Formal parameters name should be same. Right. So whatever I'm using in the function definition as the parameters name, same thing I have to do. I have to use in the function call also. So here, what is the variable I have? A and B, right? So here again, I have to use A and B only. Suppose here, if I use X and Y, I'll get section got an unexpected keyword argument X. So you're going to get this error because this is not existing in the function. And again, one more advantage is you don't need to follow the order. For example, first I will pass B, then I'll pass X. So not X, sorry, A. So you're getting the same answer, right? But in the reverse order. So what is the A value updated now? A value is updated as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. B value is updated at G. Then I'm printing A and B. So order of calling doesn't matter in order of calling doesn't matter in keyword words, right? But what matters? The name of the actual and formal parameter should be same. Okay. So this is called as keyword arguments and how to use. It's up to you guys, like depending upon requirement, you can use it. So here I'll call it again with some other variable. I've just changed the order, right? So now what I'm passing, A value, A only I'm passing, and B value, this number. So now this A value gets stored in this A, and here this B value gets stored in this B. So we are printing A and B. So here in the first function call, the order is different. Here the order is different, but still it is going to work because the order of calling doesn't matter in keyword arguments. So you are just mentioning the keyword, right? So keyword, if the function knows, that is more than enough. Okay. Yeah. So the next one is what we have. See this variable length argument, right? So the last one is variable length argument. So this variable length argument, how to do it, we will see. So we'll take the same function called as sections. Okay, so all the variable length arguments should be mentioned with star. Star, first star should be there. Then after that, variable name should be there. I mean, the parameter name should be there. Okay. Let's try to print something here. You can see now. So I am calling this function with so many values, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 values I'm passing. And here I've written star, right? So unlike, what is the first one? Required arguments, right? So unlike required arguments, here the formal parameter is only one, but the actual parameters are 6. So what is happening? You observe the output I'm getting here is F. So why I'm getting F? Can anyone tell me? What is the reason we are getting F here? So this is called as variable length argument. So The variables will be accessed starting from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Correct. Yeah. So fourth index is 4. So I am printing F. So here how it is working is the star var is basically accepting all the parameters that are coming from the function call. And based on indexing, we are accessing whatever the index that we want to access, right? So this is an example for variable length arguments. Similarly, you can call like entire list also to this. For example, I'm creating an add function. So I want to compute some value and I want to return that result back to the main function. Okay. So here I'm passing so many values to this function, add function, and it is doing sum of all these numbers and it is returning the result back to the calling function, right? So in such cases, you can use this variable length argument. So you need not to declare so many variables and waste your time. So you should know when to use this particular functions, correct? So you can also directly pass the entire list. You can pass the entire list. Now this variable length argument is a bit confusing. So it's like here what you are passing is 5, 6 values you are passing into this one parent. So let's try to do this in a different way. Okay. So here what is that I am doing? It is just reverse of what we are doing in this cell and in this cell, right? So here we were passing so many values and this one parameter was accepting all of them and we were taking some of those all arguments, right? But here we are doing exactly reverse. Here we are creating the list first, right? And the entire list we are passing to this function. But the thing is, I am not accessing all the values at a time. Here I have individual values, right? So these are individual arguments. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 arguments are there. And in those 5 arguments, I don't want to do the sum of all numbers. I want to do only a plus d. Correct. So a plus d means which one will be? That is 1 and a, b, c, d. So 1 and 4 it is getting added. Correct. So just like a reverse of this one we are doing. So this is in simple terms, you can say this is packing, whereas this is unpacking. So unpacking means dividing the list into multiple values, whereas packing is combining all the list values into a single variable, right? So here you need to be very careful. For example, okay. Now tell me why this error is coming. Simple error. Most of you should be able to understand why this error is coming. Yeah, very good. So here I am trying to send 7 values, but formal parameters are only 5. Okay, so this is not allowed. Whatever the number of values that you want to pass, right? You should have a sub exactly those minimum number of parameters to store those values. So if you are providing more values, but there is less value, less variable to store, you will get this kind of type error. Even if the opposite, suppose I have 4 variables here, 4 formal parameters, then I'm sending only 2. The same error you are getting. So missing two required positional arguments. So this is called as packing and unpacking. Okay. So you should be careful about how many values you're passing. Okay, now we are getting the output as 7. So A value is 1, D value is 6. So 1 plus 6 is 7. That's what the output we are getting here. Okay. This is a basic one, default arguments. I mean, sorry, the variable length arguments that you can pass. In this also, there are some alterations. Okay, so let's take some other example. Okay, so this also we have seen already keyword argument, right? So this was a keyword argument where we were just passing one parameter at a time. So A we were sending separately and B we were sending separately. But what is the advantage here? This is called as variable length keyword argument. So basically 2 stars I have attached here for this grade. That means this is not just keyword argument, but it is a variable length keyword argument. That means it can take the entire parameters as a values, and it can access whatever that user requires. So here I'm passing A, B, C, D, 4 keyword values I'm passing. Then in that 4 keywords, we are accessing only the value for D keyword. Correct. So as I told you, keyword arguments, both formal parameters and actual parameters should match. So whatever the parameters that you have in this class G, those name only you have to use it here. Suppose if I use something else here, you'll get a syntax error. Okay. So whatever the parameters that you have mentioned here in the function call, those only you have to use. So let's change it to A. I'm getting output as 12. So you are just trying to access the keyword value only, but we have the reference of all keywords with you. Okay, so let's try to ask you some questions based on this. So I'll write some of the questions. You can answer me. Please make note that function should always have semicolon, a colon in the end. Otherwise, it won't be recognized. Okay. So in this question, do we get output or not is the first question. If we get the output, what kind of parameters we have used? So let's take two values, 30 and 40 only. So what will be the output of this code? If at all if we are getting the output, what type of arguments we are using? Three and 70. Any other answers? Only 50. Okay. So are we just using one type of parameter or combining two parameters together? Yeah. So here N1 is, yes. So N1 is default and not N2, N1. So N2 is default, whereas N1 is required. That means you have to pass the value to N1. Okay. So what is output we're getting? 50 and 70. So in the first function call, we just have one value. So I don't know what is the other value that I want to pass. So that's why compiler is taking the default value for N2. So answer is 50. Whereas for the second function call, I have both the values. So 30 and 40. So compiler ignores this default value 20 and output I'm getting as 70. So let's try to ask you one more question. Now what will be the output? Okay. What is the reason we get error? Or number of arguments. So yes. So access arguments can be mentioned in the function definition, but not in the function call. So function definition, we have this variable length concept. So even though you have extra values, it will take it. But in the function call, you can't pass the extra values when this function definition doesn't support it. So function takes from 1 to 2 position arguments, but 3 were given. That was the error. So it's easy to understand errors in Python compared to other languages. So you just give concentrated to what type of error that you are getting. So based on that, you can just sort your errors. Okay. So let's take one more example. So is it gonna work? Okay, so where is the error? This one. Okay, let's comment line this. Now it's working. Right. So again, same error. So whenever you are having a function call, make sure exact number of arguments are matching. But is it what type of arguments we are passing? Is it default argument, required argument, or what type of arguments we are passing? Here I didn't mention any values, right? What is N1, N2, but here I'm mentioning. Very good. So this is an example for keyword or. Okay. So let's further change this to. Okay. So yeah, I'm just changing. Okay. So will we get the output now? I just changed the order of the keywords. Do we get the output? The answers? Okay. Right. So I'm executing. So you see, there is no problem. Right. So in keyword arguments, the order of the parameter passing doesn't matter. So here I'll pass N3, here I'll pass N1, then here I'll pass N2. Then you will get the same output because it doesn't care about what order you're passing. That's the advantage of keyword argument. Okay. So try to make this kind of changes and try to learn what is allowed and what is not allowed. Now to avoid this kind of things only, like compiler should know whether we are passing correct number of parameters or not. Generally, function should be written using uh, error handling. For example, Okay, so now we know that here this function is taking only two parameters, n1 and n2. I'll call this function with some value. Now we can use try and catch block, try and except, which I explained in initial class, right? So try and except you can use. So to avoid the errors like this kind of type errors, so generally function call they will write inside the try and except. Suppose this I will just cut and paste it here. Okay. Suppose if it is not there, you'll get the output as 80. But since this is not allowed, because this function is only passing one parameter, whereas this function requires two parameters. So you can use this kind of function calls inside try and except, so that whenever there is a argument error, instead of getting this runtime errors, you can display these user defined errors. So you check your arguments is the message for the user if they are not giving the valid input to the function, right? So function call generally should be written inside try and except block. You can try to use this kind of syntaxes. Okay, so moving on, there are few more ways of doing it. We'll try that. Okay. So there is something that I've added after A. Correct. This is generally the normal required argument, right? So the something that I've added, that is nothing but backslash, right? So this is the normal function call. So one parameter is required, one parameter is called, correct? But what is this backslash indicating? You need to know. So I'm trying to call this function with some default value. I mean, they're using the keyword argument. So what is happening? Section function got some positional only argument passed as a keyword argument. That is the error message, right? So what do you mean by this? Section got some positional only arguments passed as a keyword argument. That means when you put backslash after this variable a, you are telling the compiler that this supports only positional arguments. That is our first one, right? What is our first type of function argument? Required argument. So required argument also you can write, or required arguments. Supports only positional arguments or required arguments. So here I'm trying to support this with a equal to f. So it is not going to support it. So let's remove this. Now I'm getting f, right? Because this a, it supports both normal function call with the required arguments as well as positional function call with keyword argument, right? So both it is going to support. So when I make it as backslash, you have to pass only this. This is not allowed. Okay? So without backslash, what I said, it will allow both positional arguments as well as keyword arguments. So similarly, you can also do the reverse, keyword only arguments. Keyword only arguments means none other type of function call arguments will be supported except keyword arguments. So this is just opposite of that positional only argument. So here, instead of typing a comma backslash, you have to type star comma A reverse. So when you put star, that compiler understands that it is a keyword argument. Okay. Then you can print the section details. So suppose if I try to call this function with the positional arguments. So I am not using any keyword here. I'm directly calling this function section with a value. So what is the error I'm getting? Section takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. So it is just reverse of this error. Correct? So here I can't use direct function call with a value. Instead, I have to use the keyword. So let me use the keyword. What is our keyword here? A, right? So A equal to something you can write. So here this is going to work. That means only keyword it will support, none other type of arguments it will take. Understood or not? Any doubt in this? Keyword only and positional only argument. This is a bit confusing. So try to practice this. Definitely you will get a much clarity. Now I'll give one question. So let's see how many of you can just try to do and understand. Okay. So I've written something. Just try to analyze what is happening in this code and what will be the probable output. This is again one of the MCQ question which I've seen. How what is the output you can predict for this question? So just try. I'll just have what right. Yeah. So any other answers? Only Maniteja has responded. So is it an error or what is actually happening here based on your understanding in my previous explanation? FGCB. Okay. Error. Hmm? Correct. So the output is error. Why it is error? Read the error. Positional argument follows keyword argument. So before understanding this error, in these four variables, tell me which are positional arguments and which are keyword arguments. N1 and N2. What kind of arguments are they? Are they positional arguments or keyword arguments? Right. So N1 and N2 are positional, N3 and N4 are keyword arguments. Correct. So what is the problem in this function call? So here I'm trying to call N1 with C. So basically I'm telling the compiler that N1 is a keyword argument. But in the function definition, what is the syntax I explained here? If you write backslash after any variables, what does it mean? Whatever the variables that comes before that backslash are considered as a positional arguments. So here before backslash, I have two variables, N1 and N2. So these are positional arguments. So you can't pass value to them like this. Correct? So it won't work. So let's try to remove this. Now we'll get one more error. Section takes two positional arguments, but three positional arguments and one keyword arguments were given. Okay. Section takes three positional arguments. Okay, so to overcome this error, so what you have to do? Again, what is the problem here? This is a third parameter, right? So N3 is what type of argument? Keyword arguments, but I'm directly passing the values. So this has to be written like this. N3 equal to G. Now we are getting the output CFGB without any error. So hope you are understanding what is the how it is working. So basically we are combining both positional and keyword arguments together in a single function call. So before backslash, these are considered as a positional arguments. After star, these are considered as a keyword arguments. So when you say N3 is a keyword, you have to pass the keyword only. When you say N1 is a position, you have to directly pass the value without writing this keyword. So these are a bit confusing. So you have to practice and understand how to work with that. Okay. Any doubt in this? So try to practice this type of parameters. Definitely, they will ask this kind of question in MCQs. Order is not necessary. Yeah, order is not necessary. Let's try to. It's a good question. Let's try that. Hmm. So in this case, yes, it's a very good question. Mani Teja has asked. So order is not necessary or not in this particular situation. So what is the problem here? Positional arguments follows keyword argument. Again, this cannot be correct way. So let's try to change it. So what your understanding? Backslash must be ahead of star. What do you mean by that? Backslash must be ahead of star. What I'm trying to do, star N3, N4, I'm trying to make them as correct. Yeah, backslash must be ahead of star. Not precedence. That is the syntax of how to pass these parameters. Positional, then keyword. That is in by default, Python will support only this. So first you have to pass the positional, then pass the keyword. So this is the correct order. So N1, N2, these two will be considered as positional. After backslash, these two will be considered as keyword. So what happens if I remove them? Does it work? Suppose I'll remove this entire keyword concept only. Now are we getting any error? No, right? So this is unnecessary to add that backslash because by default, compiler follows position only. So whether you use this backslash or not, it's redundant. So no need of that backslash, correct? So without backslash also, by default, compiler will understand they are positional arguments. Understood or not? So I think Mani Teja's question, I think is answered. So order of the parameter is necessary or not. So when you combine both position and keyword, yes, it is mandatory. So position should follow first, come first, and keyword should follow after the position. So these are all the basics of how to create function and what type of parameter function will accept. So a lot of changes are there in terms of if you compare with C. So it's not easy to just remember. You have to keep practicing and explore or find some ways of finding the error and understanding why that error is coming. Okay. So in Python, we have one more type of function called as anonymous function, also known as Lambda functions. Okay. Anonymous functions also called as Lambda functions. So these functions are generally useful or they are known as short functions in general. When to use this function? When we have short logic and most importantly, single output. Okay. So when to use this anonymous function? When we have a simple logic and single output. So in your function, it is not doing multiple tasks, but it is only having a single output means in such situation, we can use Lambda functions. Okay. So how to create Lambda function is the next question, right? So Lambda functions, let me take direct example so that you understand. So say, for example, I have variable called as res. Okay. So after that, I am using keyword called as Lambda. Okay. Small case Lambda. Then Lambda keyword should follow by parameters. What parameters that Lambda function is taking? Okay. Then after mentioning the parameters, you have to use colon, then the operation, whatever the expression or operation that you want to do. So for example, I just want to add these two values. Then you have to use semicolon. Now this is the exception. Lambda function should always end with a semicolon. Okay. So now I will call this function ABC, not ABC. So what is that function in? Result with 20, 30. So sorry, semicolon is not mandatory. So how this function is working? Are we directly calling? See, we have not defined any function, correct? Unlike def, something like this, correct? We have not defined any such function, correct? This is not necessary. So whatever this function was doing, that we have reduced down to single line because it is a simple single output function, correct? So instead of using this complete definition, what we are doing is we are using a function called as lambda. Lambda accepts two parameters, a comma b. Then colon, after colon, whatever comes, that is called as function body or expression. So this is our expression. So a plus b it is doing. Then the final result is getting stored in this res variable. So this res is acting like a function call, though it is not a function, it is acting like a function call. So we are calling that res and passing that values. How many parameters that you mentioned? That many values we are passing. So 20 and 30. Suppose if I pass 50, so what is the error I'm getting? Lambda takes two position arguments, but three were given. Same kind of errors you will get. And suppose if I just directly call without any values also, it is fine. Now you can, I mean, no, this won't call because these are printed as it is. So ultimately, what if I use directly lambda? Okay, so you can't directly use lambda as a function name. So lambda should have some reference where the output can be stored. So lambda is storing the output in res. So this res is the variable that we have to use for the function call, and we have to pass the parameters to it. Okay, this is one way lambda can be useful. So if you think this is confusing, sir, then you can just use lambda. You cannot use because it's a keyword. I am using lambda underscore. So in this way, you can just remember how to call the lambda function. So instead of using res keyword, I am using lambda name only, but with underscore. Why underscore? Because it is not considered as an inbuilt keyword. So just to avoid that, I'm using underscore, or else you can use some other name also. Lambda one I'm using. So this also acts like a function call. Understood? So in such cases, we can use this lambda function. So what kind of uh, programs or how to apply this lambda function, that we need to practice regularly. So you will get to know the logic. Okay, for this code, I can use lambda function to minimize my complexity of the code. So you can just explore this, and when to apply this lambda function is again your own logic, your own thinking. So I'm just giving a few examples. So for example, I have two variables x and y. Now I want to check whether x is less than y, correct? So expression part, what I will do, I want to print x if x is less than y, else y. This is again shorthand if case. So what does this say? Print x if x is less than y, else y. So that means we are just storing one of these values in the minimum variable. So how to call this lambda function? Tell me. To print, what should be the function name? Function call name, minimum. So that's what we're trying to find, minimum. Then I'll pass some values to it. Okay. So again, for this kind of shorthand uh, expressions or single output statement, you can use the lambda expression. Is that clear? Any doubt in this? So in general, what is the syntax of lambda function? Lambda arguments 1, arguments 2, and so on. You can mention as many arguments as you want, but after that colon is mandatory. Then after colon, expression body of that particular logic, and it has to be stored in some other variable for printing the output. Okay. So how to use this lambda function to do complex logics and reduce our work into a simple in Python is what you need to explore. Okay, so let's take one particular example. Okay, so I will give this. Anyone who can try, you can try. So let's take one list, my list, and I am trying to take a nested list. Okay, so you know how to create nested list, right? Inside one list, we have another list. Okay. Then pass some values. So let's take this nested list where we have uh, three separate lists, each list having its own set of values, right? Now, what I want to do for this particular list, I want to find out or I want to access the second largest element from this individual list. Okay, so what is the question? Find second largest element from the following nested lists. That means from each list, I want a second largest element. That means what should be our output? So what is the second largest element in this first list? 6, right? And here, what is the second largest element? 54 is the largest. So 23 is the second largest. And again from here, 56. So our output should be 6 comma 23 comma 56. So that is the requirement. Okay. So from each list, I want to find out the second largest, not the largest, the second largest element from the nested list. So for this kind of complex logics, you can apply lambda expression. Again, why lambda expression? Because you know that every list I am extracting only single value, right? That means single output I am accessing from every list. So you can use lambda for this. So single output, you have to keep it in mind. So lambda should not be used always. Only for such programs where single output is there, lambda can be used for your clarity. Okay. So can anyone try how to do it? Okay. Before going to that second largest, I will just give you uh, how to apply lambda on this list. So based on that clue, you can try it. So I'm trying to update this my list with lambda. So let us take the expression parameter as I. After that, we have to mention the colon. Okay, so here I'm using the sorted function, sorted of I for sorted, I'll take some other variable. I'm using it. Sorted of num for num in I. Object is not iterable. So why we are getting that? Print my list, correct? What is this? It is a memory address, right? So basically, I'm trying to sort each nested list inside the main list and storing the final output in my list. So I'm getting some memory address. This kind of return value, how to convert it into the actual values. Anyone have idea? Convert to list. That I tried. See, the first thing is we have not yet called this function, right? I mean, we have to call this function. My list we have to call. From where we have called that? We have not yet called. Correct or not? Are you getting my point? So before doing this, I have to change the variable name. Say, for example, I'll make this as a result. Then print result of my list. So I have to pass this my list to it. So you just understand how we did here. So minimum is the reference for lambda. Minimum of two parameters we passed. Similarly, this is my reference for the data. And this is the final variable where I want to store the result. So res of my list I'm writing. That means this is my lambda expression for which what is the reference data that I'm passing? My list. Okay. So now we're getting some output. So now let's, before printing, first we will call this. Okay. So see what I have done. So first I've called this res function. I mean, res is not actually a function. It is a reference for lambda expression, and for which I pass this my list, and whatever the result that it is returning, that we are storing it in list one. Okay. Then before printing, that list one has to be converted into list, because the return type of lambda we have to just check. Return type of lambda expression in Python, right? So you don't have any like particular answer in any site, so you just explore. But by default, what I know is uh, whenever you want to return some values from the lambda expression. So here by default, it is returning integer value. But for this particular case, right here, since it is not a single value, right? It is not a single value, it is a nested list. So if I just try to print the result as it is, what I am getting, generator object lambda. So this is what we are getting. Okay, so you can see here, we need to use tuple or list to convert that generator expression to list. So basically, since it is a 2D list, right? It is using some generator concept and returning the result to you into this list one. To, to get the actual values, this generator expression has to be converted into list. So that's why we are converting that result into list to get the actual value. Now what this particular code is doing, this is our lambda, and here this is doing a sorted job. So sorted of num for num in I. So when I say lambda of I, I'm passing only one parameter to it, correct? So it is accessing each index value one by one. So zeroth index, we have this entire list. First index, we have this entire list. So every individual index is considered as a list now. So this I is accessing this entire first list. Then within this list, we are sorting each number, sorted of num for num in I. So we are just converting and putting them into appropriate places. We're just sorting each individual value from this particular list, correct? So that is what we are doing. So now, can you guys try it? I'll give you the question. Can you guys do sum of this numbers 3586 using lambda expression? And I want to get the output as 3586. That is that overall sum. 8 plus 6, 14 plus 5, 19 plus 3, 22. So I want to get 22 here. Then for this sum, suppose assume 105. Then for this sum, 18, something like this. I want to just get this value. Again, this is also single output, right? Here we are sorting. And what is the task I'm giving you? I'm asking you to do the sum of these numbers and print them. Can you try it? Just modify this code. Only thing that you need to do is change this expression. What should you write here? Okay, so Sumit lambda of I, sum of num for num in I. Correct. So just instead of sort, we have to just apply sum function. Correct. So this is a basically how you apply lambda expression to minimize your work. So instead of generator, now see here, what is the problem? That problem is been solved now. Even though I'm not converting into list, it is working. So what is the change I have done? This is a list comprehension technique, right? So when you write in square bracket some expression, that is considered as a list comprehension. So when you use list comprehension, the return value will be in the list format only. So you need not to convert that again back to list. So that's why here I'm not converting that back to list. So you can just again minimize this entire function call print result of my list. You get the same output. So generator expression means bracket will be there, normal bracket. List comprehension means square bracket will be there. But what is the difference between generator and list comprehension? Anyone explore? Generator in Python, correct? Did I explain this generator concept to you guys? Hmm? What is generator? So a generator is a function that returns an iterator that produces a sequence of value and iterated over. So generators are useful when we want to produce large sequence of values, but we don't want to store all of them in memory at once. See, there is no much difference between this syntax and the previous syntax. Both of them are same. But the disadvantage with this is it will create some temporary memory location, store all the temporary values, then print the values, right? Whereas generator doesn't store any intermediate values. It will iterate all the values at a time and then finally store the value. So let's explore some easy question. Okay, here they've explained in detail actually. So this example you take. Yeah, similar to reduce function, but reduce itself is not a it's like a library. It's just one of the library function. But generator is like a big concept where like within generator you can use some other functions. So you see here the generator, basically this is one of the example for generator. So you can use yield function. That means only when you want the output to be printed, then only it will print. So it's like a bit confusing with what you are for list comparison. So in tomorrow's session, I think I'll take some examples and I'll give much clarity. But till that time, you can explore how the generator should be used. In modal separate problem, there is some which question mark? I'll just check it out. Okay, so coming back to what is our task now? We have to find out. Just will complete this question and remind me. Next session will be on not tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday, right? So Thursday. So next session will be on Thursday. Thursday we will cover some questions based on generator. I will take some example and give clarity why generator is powerful. Okay, so generator will go in depth and understand. And regarding the exam assessment test, so we are just finding out who are eligible. So we have kept some criteria. So not all will be writing the second assessment. So once I send you the list of the people who will be able to write the exam, only those will be not taking the assessment. So you can inform this to your friends in the class also. By tomorrow or tomorrow evening, I will send you the list. Assessment will be kept on Thursday and Friday. Okay, based on all the previous topics up to list, set, tuple, and dictionary. Okay, not today's topic. So completing with all the previous models, whatever we covered up to that, assessment will be there. We are keeping some criteria for the taking assessment because we know not all are practicing, not all are working sincerely. So only those who have performed regularly in the Moodle as well as in the first assessment scores we are considering. So based on that, we will filter out the students and we'll send the list of students who are eligible to write the second assessment. So hardly we'll get around 300, 400 students who will be eligible. So test will be conducted only for these 300, 400 students. So remaining students will just sit in the lab and do their work. The remaining people will take the assessment. Okay. Now, the next question is we have to find out second largest, right? In this, our question is find second largest element from the following list. So, time being, I'll comment like this. Thursday and Friday. Okay. Basically, L is indicating or it takes another variable, indicating the expression. So length of I minus 2. So obviously we need to sort first because see, I want to sort it. Without sorting, you can't do it. Sorted of num. First, we need to sort the array. So we get to know the arrays in sorted order. Then we will extract the last second largest, right? So, and we don't know how many elements are there in the each list. So here we have 4, here you have 5. So let's add some more elements here. So here we have 7, right? 7 or 8. So we don't know how many elements are there in each list. So we first we have to sort out this list in the ascending order, right? Then after sorting out, what we have to do, take the length of I minus 2 for I in function of, right? So this is the syntax. Now we will call that result function. What is that parameter we have to pass? See, now we are telling that this lambda is accepting two parameters. One is number, one is function. So let's rename this as sorted data. Correct. So one I have to mention the original list. So original list is my list. And I have to send this sorted data. So sorted data is my second value. Correct or not? So first we are sorting the data and original list we are giving it is for reference so that we have to find out how many uh, values are there in each particular nested list. Correct. So length of I minus 2 I am doing. Can anyone tell me? I length of I minus 2 for I in function of num. So what is this parameter I'm passing to this function? This number. Correct. What is this number? Number is iterating over each list value, right? So for every value in this function, which is a nested list, take this sorted data. Sorted data is only the function, right? So my list is number, sorted data is the function. So find out the last but one. Second largest index will be Okay, is it third largest I'm finding? Of I minus 1, no? Because see, we are starting with the index 0, right? So it has to be minus 2 only. Just verify length of I minus 2 only. Minus 1, I understood why you're sending that. Length of I minus 2 because, yeah, this is also fine. Instead of doing this, you can, if it is confusing you, I minus 2 also you can. So here what is I minus 2 is indicating you are accessing in the reverse order using slicing. So 3, 5, 6, 8. So minus 1, minus 2. Correct? So that is one thing. Otherwise, length of I minus 2. So length of I means basically how many values? 4. 4 minus 2 is how much? 4 minus 2 is the second index. 0, 1, 2. So you are accessing this value. So both of them are doing the same task. Correct? So for this, the reference what we are giving is two references we are giving to the lambda function. One is the main list, that is the main list, and another is the sorted data. So first we will sort it separately using one lambda. Then for finding the second largest, we are using the another lambda expression, for which we are giving the reference of the original list and the sorted list. So this function taking the sorted list, so function of num. Can anyone tell me what value we are passing here? The num indicates what? Basically, what is happening here? So my list is keeping track of this entire thing. This function is calling this sorted function with each nested list, correct? So 3, 5, 8, 6, we are passing at this point. Then the control will go to here. Then this particular function will sort this 3, 5, 8, 6 in the sorted order and return the result. After getting the result, we are accessing I minus 2th value, then again storing that result into this another variable, res, correct? So that is how the order. So the order is first this will happen, the sorting will happen. So don't think that the sorting will happen all at a time. For example, see in this case, sorted of data, I have to pass what? My list. Okay. So you have sorted of data, right? Yes. So first we are sorting this individual list through what? Through this function. Or else can you further improvise it? For example, instead of doing this entire thing, just wait, I'm trying also. So res I will use lambda, I will use num. Can I directly access I of minus 2 for I in num? Okay, what is our sorted data? So let's convert that sorted data to text. So function object is not iterable. So that is the problem. See why I have done like this, you should understand. You know how the lambda expression works. Lambda expression always returns a single output. So when you say this sorted data, this entire thing is considered as a single output. That means you cannot iterate on this particular value directly, though you are seeing that as a different sets. Like 3, 5, 6, 8 is a different set, a different list and list. So you might think we can access this values one by one. But since lambda expression always returns a single output, we cannot directly pass this particular sorted data here. Correct? So we cannot pass that sorted data as the reference. So to overcome that only, what we did, we have to pass the my list. Okay, so now you can check. My list is one reference and sorted data is another reference. Again, this sorted data is not a single value. It is a list of value, correct? This for this sorted data, again, I have to call that function once again, function of num, right? So my list is keeping track of this values in the original list, and function is keeping track of sorted data. So sorted data is the reference for this particular function, and we are calling that sorted data function, right? I mean this sorted data, whatever the already sorted value is there, that we are iterating indirectly. So you are not sorting it once again. Actually, we are already sorting in this line. Then once we are sorting, individual values we have to access, and from there we have to find out the second largest element. So this I minus 2 is accessing that particular second largest. Understood? So it's a bit complicated in order to explain, because that's why lambda many people don't understand when they use it. So you have to internally think how it is working. So in simple terms, lambda requires parameters and it always returns single output. So single output data you can't give reference to. I mean, this entire thing you can't give as a reference to the lambda expression because it is not iterable. Correct? So since it's a single output, it is not iterable. So we are just converting this single output to multiple list by again accessing the individual values from the sorted list. So that's why two reference we are taking. So my list as well as sorted data. So the sorted data reference for this num. Any doubt in this? Lakshmi, I hope you are at least something is going to your head based on whatever I explained. So please try it once again. Maybe in the upcoming class, I will take some other examples. We'll solve few more problems based on lambda expression, and I'll give you much more clarity. Something you understood or no? About others? Okay. So just remind me in the next session. We will explore for some topics based on generators, some problems we will solve based on generator, and lambda expression, few more problems, how to think and apply the logic, because it's confusing, because it's not straightforward. There is a lot of constraints and restrictions that you will be finding when you are solving it. So you just have to trial and error method. You have to understand and learn it. Okay. So length of minus 2, I hope that also you understood. So what we are doing is first finding the overall length of I, then minus 2, if you do, we'll get the second largest. So here you see the length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 is our overall length, right? So second largest, if I want to do, just the last value, I'll access 8 minus 2, the value I'll access. I'll get the second largest element. Okay, so as I told you, just keep revising for the assessment, all the previous topics. So ignore today's topic, you won't get in the assessment. Just practice it, whatever you are able to understand. And anyway, I'll upload these videos in YouTube. Just refer it once again. So we'll meet again on Thursday after your assessment. Okay. So see you.